episode of Because We Care with host Reggie Watts and
Keith
Kilgore over
Kilgore.
here. And we have two very special guests from Weekly Metal Reviews, Tyler Loy here, and our current cameraman who's walking over now, Sam Wilson.
Said my name wrong.
T-Boy Fat something, something, I don't know.
T-Boy.
T-Boy Fat.
Okay.
Fat Boy T, yeah, something like that.
Okay, and this episode is on the Pokemon generations. We're talking about all the Pokemon generations in order, 1 through 5. And I guess we'll start here with Tyler on the end. Generation 1.
Yeah, I'm on the end. Generation 1. Shit. That came out a long time ago. Those were the first Pokemon games I ever got into and ever played, which I'm sure a lot of people have. If you enjoy Pokemon, you've played like Red and Blue and whatever the fuck the other one was, Yellow.
Yeah.
It's just that the original Pokemon is always like going to have a spot in my heart, you know. It's just so enjoyable. You can put so much time into it. There's a lot to do. I like Generation 2 better, but we'll get to that. But the originals was good. Just like the classic Pokemon that everybody knows and loves, and it was just really cool just for the first time being able to go through and train all your Pokemon and get badges and all that shit. It was a feeling like no other.
Okay, I'm in the middle. Okay, anyway, Generation 1 was not the first Pokemon game I ever played, actually. I came back and played that later, but I'll talk about that later. Okay. But still, I think some of my favorite Pokemon are from Generation 1. I think the legendary Pokemon are, for instance, some of the coolest, because after a couple generations they started getting redundant and more ridiculous. Has my favorite Pokemon in Generation 1, Slowbro. He's the champ. The gym leaders in that game were interesting, to say the least. I like how high level Pokemon were in those gyms, and how I guess challenging the game was overall. It was quite an experience to go through and play everything in its entirety.
Alright, like, the first Pokemon games that came out, the Red, Blue, and the Yellow, were really the first of its kind. You got these Game Boy games. They're really the first Pokemon games. It was the first games like that, where you go through and whatnot. And I feel like they had their strong points, as in they were the first game. They were like the originals. You finally got to play these really cool games. And there was a good amount to them. The whole map was great. And like the little things you would have to do, go from like town to town, and sometimes like the whole Snorlax thing where you have to find the Pokeflute and get through him. But I do feel that they had their weak spots. Being as like the first games, they're bound to have their weak spots. But with these games, I feel that the weak spot definitely lies in Team Rocket. Yeah, it's fun going through, beating them throughout the map, and it's kind of this fun sort of side story, but it really, really gets monotonous after you face Rattata after coughing, and it's the same Pokemon over and over again. You finally get to Giovanni, and it's like, yeah, you have some cool Pokemon, and then you beat it, and that's kind of it. I mean, it was an adventure. It was a good adventure. And being the first games, they're bound to have their bad parts, but I feel that they set the standard, though.
Alright, so Generation 1 of the Pokemon was probably the one that I played the most out of, because I have all three of the Red, Blue, and Yellow, and I don't know if you guys technically consider any of the rest of these games in that, but Generation 1 also kind of includes like Pokemon Stadium and Pokemon Snap, which are also two very amazing games. They're great for their times. But in the handheld games, again, probably it holds special place, because it was like one of the first games that I got for Game Boy when I got my little Game Boy Color. I don't even know how old I was. And I mean, a lot of the concepts are kind of very original in that game. Especially when you play the first game and you look back and you play, I don't know, for example, Generation 3, and it's like, oh, there's an ice-type gym leader or something. It's like, oh, that's already been done. I mean, I know that there has to be a point where it stops getting repetitive. But for originality, yeah, they get a lot of points. I'd agree with Sam that yeah, there's some weak points. Like some things just kind of don't make sense, like the leveling, in a way with some because you'll face people and they'll have, I don't know, an example. They'll have a Geodude, and it'll be like a level 21, and then they'll pull out a Graveler who's also a level 21, and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, wait, how does this make sense? But I mean, there was a lot of interesting things from that game that kind of are missing from the other games that I really like. On my original game, I actually did the Mew glitch, and I actually caught Mew in that game.
Yep, so did I.
And then I also caught Missing No, also caught him, which was another really interesting glitch because it's basically just like a barcode, and apparently he's a water/bird type Pokemon. It's really weird, but like I kind of exploited that game for as much as I could, and I have so many great memories from it.
The one thing that's about every Pokemon game though, especially in these games, after you beat it, after you beat every gym leader, after you beat the Elite Four, it just kind of, there's not much to do afterwards.
I mean, there's Mewtwo, but
Well, yeah, there's
You gotta catch
Mewtwo,
'em all.
legendaries, but I mean, besides that, once you catch, after you beat the gym leaders, it's just kind of run stale a little bit. And that's kind of a given for everyone.
Yeah.
Sort of, right?
Generation 2, the Johto region. It's probably my favorite ever. I loved Silver and Gold and Crystal, just because, like, the Johto region itself was really just an awesome, vast world that I really liked. I really liked the new Pokemon in that too, and just being able to go back to the first world and getting like 16 badges and going through all of that is just like doubly the fun and doubly the awesomeness of the first one. It's like the first one plus this. I just thought that was awesome, and there was new things you could do in it, and it was just fucking awesome. And there was those like legendary Pokemon like Entei, Raikou that just pissed you off because you'd be like, oh, they're right here, but then they're like fucking over in China. They're way over there now, and they always pissed me off. But it was always really satisfying when you finally caught them. And I just thought overall that was like the best Pokemon they've ever made, and forever will be. I still have my crystal somewhere. But yeah.
Okay. Gen 2, I started playing Gen 2. I bought Gen 1 later, soon afterwards. First game I owned was Crystal. Silver. I got Crystal later. Crystal was like probably my favorite Pokemon game ever. But I had Silver for the longest time, which in second generation they expanded upon a lot of things. A lot of new items are cool. I like being able to use the select button to get on your fucking bike, which is really useful.
instead of having to go through the menu.
Yeah.
And especially when you already have a lot of shit, go to the bottom of your menu, find the bike.
Or to fish too, which made it so much easier to keep going back and forth. And they added 2 new types. They added Steel type, my favorite type of Pokemon. I love Steel types. And then they added Dark types, like Murkrow and Houndoom and all that stuff. As Tyler said, having 2 worlds, having Kanto and Johto in one, was, quote, doubly the awesomeness or funness or whatever the hell you said. We've all been there, searching for Entei and Suicune and Raikou, getting pissed off. The game has my favorite legendary Pokemon of all time in it too, which is Lugia.
Pound that,
The water
brother.
type.
Mine too.
This is shit.
Had
Just-
Ho-Oh.
Ho-Oh, yeah. Ho-Oh. Felt like I named mine something inappropriate, but besides the point. But overall, just an amazing game. I don't think anyone matched the Generation 2. So, same.
They really said a lot about it. It's definitely, they took the first games and they looked at it and they're like, alright, what else can we do here? We can add a little bit of here, we can add a little bit there. And like they said, it's the first game featuring non-stationary type Pokemon. Whereas the first games, Zapdos, Articuno, Moltres, you know, they were in the caves. You go down, you find them. Same with Mewtwo. In these games, you actually get a choice between like two different main legendary ones, and you get the adventure to catch the rest of them. And yeah, there's a second world and all. I feel like they added to the game a little bit, and it was cool. Like still the same sort of graphics, pretty much. I mean, you can't really say that. Further time, I guess, like, you know, the original first generation back in the 90s and this back in the early 2000s, the graphics aren't going to be like off the wall or whatever, but they're still pretty much the same graphics. You got little extra things that you could do, like getting the apricots and getting Kurt to make you different types of Pokeballs, and what else? Just different little side missions to go with the game instead of going like through the whole map.
One thing too, I like that with it is we're talking about side missions. Is also that you can go and kind of face Ash in that one cave.
Oh
at the end
yeah,
of it.
yeah,
Remember that?
yeah,
It's interesting. You can like go face like Pokemon with like level 70 stuff and beat the game.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And they do a good job in the remakes in Heart Gold. I played that one. I haven't played Soul Silver, but in Heart Gold they remade the game pretty good, and they really kept a lot of what it originally had. But overall, it was a pretty good generation. I feel like it offered a bunch of new cool Pokemon and different abilities, and you know, just some new interesting shit that you know hasn't been there. And they brought eggs and stuff, and that was kind of
Yeah.
cool. And I mean, it added little extra things here and there. I like Ho-Oh.
Me too.
Yeah.
There's a lot more.
Generation 2, to be quite honest, was probably I had the least experience within the Pokemon generations. I really only played 2 games out of it, which if you count like in the non-handheld games, I played Pokemon Stadium 2, and then I played Gold. And I only played Gold for a little bit because I was just borrowing it from somebody. And yeah, kind of like what Sam said, they added little things to it, and they made things that were, some of the things that were kind of wrong with the original game, they made them better. Like something I didn't mention was there's this glitch where if you go into the Safari Zone and walk right back out, and you go to, I don't know, for example, you go to Lavender Town in the first game or something, there was a chance that the city would be glitched, and all of the buildings would be like all messed up and it wouldn't look right. You couldn't go in, couldn't do anything, which, you know, they fixed that. I think they took the Safari Zone out in the second, in the original Gold. I don't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, I enjoyed it for what I did. The only reason I really stopped playing was because these guys said, yeah, you feel, I never got to get the satisfaction of catching Entei, Raikou, or Suicune because I got pissed off and I gave up on it and I gave it back to my friend at that point. So, but I'd have to agree this is probably the best generation in terms of not making unnecessary changes in a way. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
One thing I just forgot to mention, it pisses me off that they don't let you get Mew in the first generation or Celebi in the second generation. There's Pokemon that just won't let you get, and that always pissed me off. Like I never understood.
Well,
that.
there's the glitch.
Can't catch 'em all.
Well, there's glitches and stuff, but I hate that you have to go through an event and that crap. They should just put them in the game somehow, add like an extra thing to go through.